Hey there everyone, you're watching another Planetside2 video here on Kaostv. We're actually going to be doing a little bit different of a video this time around, so no let's plays and that whatnot. It's going to be more of an in-depth video, i.e. if you are going to understand most of the talking that's going to be done here, you will have needed to play Planetside. If not, you can see this as a good introduction, and why not, get the game yourself and just start playing, seeing as it's free to play anyway. Today we're going to be talking about the Liberator, which is the bomber inside Planetside2. That being, there's a lot of choices to make with a bomber, so we've seen a lot of people using it to a higher level, a higher extent the last couple of weeks. So we decided to make a video about this and yeah, just discuss the choices to make when it comes to flying a Liberator or gunning a Liberator. I already made a video about it, but I decided not to post it online because I figured it was too long. I want this to be understandable for everyone, and the video was something like 35 minutes, and I just considered that to be too lengthy. So I decided to split this up, and today in this video just talk about the certifications, choices to make, the do's and the don'ts of all the certifications. Try and make it a little bit understandable for you. And in the video after this, we're going to be more practical in our approach, where me and Farox, who's one of my fixed gunners, will just gun around, set up a couple of two gaming machines in the XSplit and whatnot, and use the picture-in-picture there to actually show you the way the pilot moves in comparison to the way the gunner shoots, because that's something that's missing right now in the game. I, as a pilot, cannot see what my gunner sees, and vice versa. My gunner cannot see what I see. So there's a lot of communication elements that go into flying together in a Liberator that you actually need to consider. But we'll get to that in the next video. So why not have a look at the certifications this time around. So as you can see, there's a lot of certifications. The Liberator is one of a few vehicles that gives you a lot of choices when it comes to weaponry and the possible consequences to that. So as you can see, there's 2 primary weapons, 3 secondary and 3 tertiary. The primary being the pilot's guns, secondary being the main bomber, and tertiary being the rear gunner. In addition to that, we have the utility, defense and performance slots and whatnot, but we'll just run through them in a proper sorted fashion. Passive systems does not need much explaining. If you sort up all the way, you get a 900-second reduction in acquisition timer. So that means the faster you can actually pull the vehicle. Utility slots. What I'm going to be trying to do here is to just range everything from a sort of priority order, i.e. when there's 4 of these certifications to pick, I'll try and start with the one that I find least important and scale up to the one I find most important. So to just keep it a little bit in frame for everyone. So when it comes to utility slots, as you can see, I'm a little bit on the fence as to where to go. But let's just start with the one that's least ranked on the priority list, and that's the ejection seat. For all the utility slot items, I considered the usefulness, the utility of it, from the start till the end of battle. Well, the ejection seat in that case just, scores 0 or maybe 1 out of 10. If only because by the time you want to use your ejection seat, you will be doing so because your plane is about to blow up, i.e. you have been shot down. So the usefulness of the ejection seat from takeoff till battle, up until battle till death, is fairly low. That's why I ranked this one all the way at the bottom of the list. Next one up is the fire suppression system. If only because just like the ejection system, its whole full-scale battlefield usefulness is fairly low, if you ask me. By the time that you use a fire suppression system, you know that shit has already hit the fan. You are in flames. You want to land your vehicle as fast as possible, but maybe you can't because there's a scythe or a reaver chasing you. So the fire suppression system is one of those certifications that if you can use it and you stay alive because you can use it, that's like a 1 in 100 chance that it ever happens. So in comparison to the other 2 certifications that are left on the list, I rate this one as a 3rd on the top 4 list. The second one is going to be the decoy flares. They're a lot more useful than any of the other certifications when it comes to battle effectiveness, if only because if you get a lock on, you can actually just throw out a decoy flare and disengage the lock on. It's fairly useful, but the only thing is it does not protect you from flak damage. So if there's a reaver chasing you that doesn't even have air-to-air rockets, then decoy flares are pointless. If there's no guys on the floor that have lock-on rockets, then it's pointless. So it's useful, but also if you start counting towards the fact that you disengage and block new lockouts for 5 seconds, and you can reduce the timer all the way to 25 seconds, it does have somewhat of a limited viability. Therefore, I rank this one on number 2 out of the top 4. The highest ranking one that I have is the Afterburner, if only because it's effective in all cases. You can use it to quickly, go from stationary into about 120 to 140 kph within a second or two, maybe a little less. You can use it to get away from who's ever chasing you. You can get it to get into a certain bombing position quicker than you can without. So I range this one as the obvious number 1 in the utility slots. Plus, and we'll get on to that later, it does coincide with the Racer high-speed airframe in the performance slots. So defense slots. So we have a total of 3 certifications that we rank, starting with the one that's least interesting. I'd say the vehicle stealth, if only because a bomber doesn't feel very stealthy. Out of the 3 guns that you can pick, the Shredder, the Dalton, or the Zephyr, the Shredder has awesome sound, and as soon as you start firing, everyone knows where you are. The Dalton is the most silent one, but as soon as you hit a tank and he sees like a third to 40% of his health drop in, he knows to look up. The Zephyr makes the most noise out of all because it's 6 shells that rock the world downstairs and whatnot. So any weapon that you'll pick will actually counteract the stealth, meaning you can hover about and people won't see you on the proximity radar, and then you start firing and they know where you are, and instantly the entire certification tree that you've picked is useless. Pardon me. It does, however, also increase the time to lock onto the vehicle, but take into consideration that all the way up to the 1000, 1200, 1300, 1330 certifications that you need to spec it all the way, you can get up to just 1 second, which, to be honest, isn't a whole lot when you consider that sometimes it takes you over 15 to 20 seconds to fly back to a safe haven for you to actually land and repair. Therefore, I just rank this one as the least useful when it comes to the defense slots. Second on the list is the Nanite auto repair system. It is fairly doable if you go all the way up and see that it just does only cost you up to 500 certs for the last one. It repairs 2.78% every 5 seconds, which boils down to round about 30% in a minute if you do not get hit. As you can see, damage disables auto repair for 10 seconds, and that's the in my opinion, the biggest problem. You get hit a lot when you're flying around, let's just face it. Sometimes it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but seeing as by the time that you get hit, you reset your nanite auto repair system, and henceforth you don't repair. So considering the fact you have to go and restock ammo often anyway, if your gunner is doing a lot of shots, or shooting a lot I should say, then it doesn't really matter to repair while you're at it, so that's why I rank this one on the second most useful in the defense slots. Then there's the vehicles, not the vehicle stealth, then there's the composite armor. Reduces damage taken from flak by an additional 10%. I just see this as an extra way to give your gunner, your bomber, more time to actually shoot down flak, because that's the way it is. If I'm hovering above 1 AA max, with this completely maxed, you do see the difference because it's 10% that is noticeable. My gunner, whether it be a Zephyr, Dalton, or a Shredder, can actually take down that max that shoot me while he's actually shooting us. So it's just a matter of we can kill them faster than they can kill us. So this is obviously marked first in the defense slots. So next, performance slots. This is a tough one. I said at the beginning of this video that I wanted to mark everything in a sort of prioritized fashion, but I'm not going to be doing that for this one because it really depends on call it the actual applications of using your Liberator, i.e. The precision bombing, in my opinion, isn't really the precision bomber frame. It's fairly useful if you want to use your tank buster, which we'll get into later, fairly efficiently. The high G airframe, on the other hand, is extremely useful when you want to do precision bombing. And the Razor high speed airframe is the all-around one because it allows you to get into position, as we already covered. As we pointed out, the Razor high speed airframe coincides or synergizes with the utility slots afterburner. And I'm trying to click it and it's not doing it. Click, and there we go, afterburner. So as you can see, the performance slot, the Razor high speed airframe, improved cruise and afterburner speed. So the afterburner certification gives you an afterburner and increases fuel regeneration, and then the high speed airframe synergizes with that to give you more speed. So I figured, you know, why the hell not? I like the afterburner, so I'm gonna go high speed airframe. Each block approximately gives you like 10 to 15 kph, I believe, so it's not a whole lot. I believe it's 5 kph per, so I didn't mean every block gives you, so at the end you'll have like 10 to 15 kph more, if I'm not mistaken. It's not a whole lot, but still. So as said, I'm not going to be rating this. This is purely up to what you want to do with your Liberator, and at some point I will have all of these, because depending on the situation that I see in the continent that we're currently fighting, I'll adjust to a certain airframe. Right. That's all for the Liberator certifications. Now we're just going to the weaponry. I'm not going to be discussing the Vector because it's you know, as soon as you can get the tank buster, just do it, because it just outscales the Vector by 1.5 miles. So you know, just do that right away. As for certifications, the weapon ammo, weapon optics and whatnot are fairly standard certs, so I won't delve into that. Weapon utility magazine size is fairly important because there's 30 rounds in the standard mag, so all the way up to magazine size 4 you'll get about 50% of that added. Doesn't seem like a whole lot, but take into consideration that the tank buster can actually burst down a Empire specific fighter like a Reaver Mosquito or a Scythe with almost 30 bullets, so adding these 14 rounds will actually mean you can take down an Empire specific fighter in one burst and you're done with it. Doesn't mean you need to hit all the bullets, but even so, it is worth it. Right, on to weapons it is. Won't be discussing the Vector because, well, the sooner you can get the tank buster, the better. The Vector is just a standard weapon for the pilot. The tank buster outpaces it by 1.5 miles when it comes to damage, so we'll skip straight to that. Ammo and optics don't need much of an explanation, so we'll skip straight to the utility. Magazine size can get you all the way up to 14 rounds extra in the default magazine, which means it's about 50% more, seeing as there's about 30 rounds. There is exactly 30 rounds in the standard clip. Take into consideration that the current 30 basic rounds that are in there will already take an Empire specific fighter like Reaver, Scythe or Mosquito down to about 10-12% health. So add 14 rounds to that, and up close and personal you can basically take a fighter and I believe even a Liberator down in one burst. So try and take you know, spec into that. Following that, it's all the secondary guns. The Shredder is the hybrid, I'd like to call it, i.e. the Dalton is the anti-armor gun, the Zephyr is the anti-infantry gun, and the Shredder is somewhere in between in the sense that it doesn't really fire big bullets, it just fires a lot of bullets. Even so, all of them can kill infantry, all of them can kill armor. One's just more effective at the other than another, let's just call it that. The Dalton and Zephyr are most used at the moment. Me and my gunner Ferox have been trying to implement the Shredder, and so far it's actually been fairly positive. I'll get onto that in a second. The Dalton allows for a lot more high precision bombing. It doesn't make much sound even when you hit a target. The Zephyr on the other hand makes a shit ton of sound. It contains 6 shells that make the ground shake and everything. But it's the most effective farmer slash spawn camper that I know in game. So when you want to go on a farming run and you know you got yourself a gunner that knows how to gun, then just take a Zephyr. The Shredder, as I said, is basically like a quad Gatling cannon. It's got 4 Gatling guns on it that fire a lot of bullets in as little as time as possible. It isn't used that much, but the reason why me and Farrokh started using it is because we felt that it might be a little bit underused because it's good at taking down AA turrets, it's good at taking down armor, it's good at taking down maxes. It's a little bit harder to actually hit infantry, but it's also good at taking down aircraft as long as you side strafe with the lib. This will be shown in the coming video with more practical examples, but even so, as for the certifications to spec into, it's really up to choice. If you go all the way into zoom, it just makes it really hard when you zoom to actually move your mouse, because there's one tiny speck of movement will actually shoot you across half the map. I'm exaggerating here, but you get the point. As for the Dalton, I've gone into infrared optics, but also into zoom, because it really depends. I mean, the infrared optics have limited vision, which means if you do 600 plus meters bombing, there's no real point to having infrared on, in which case zoom might be a little better. Increasing ammo for the Dalton is a must because it doesn't have that many rounds in it to start with. The Zephyr, infrared or thermal, either will do, is extremely important because you do fairly low altitude bombings and you need to be able to specify or nail targets quickly. So you can't spend a lot of time as a gunner trying to scope out, you know, the horizon to see if you can possibly find the, you know, snipers on the hill or whatnot. So that's it for the secondary guns. Onto the tertiary guns. Drake is another one, just like the Vector, that I won't necessarily discuss. It's the basic weapon on there, just as you have basic weapons on your tanks, your Sunders or whatnot. As soon as you can, upgrade to the Walker, because the Walker, even though the damage against AA in my opinion is a little bit low, it is a lot better than the Drake. It's easier to trace, and it does more damage to AA as far as I know. So yeah, I'd say upgrade to the Walker as fast as you can. The reason I have infrared optics on it is because with the smoke and whatnot, when you're being fired upon and you start smoking, your rear gunner can't see shit besides the smoke unless you have infrared optics. So upgrade to that as soon as you can. Now the Bulldog is another one of those controversial guns that we're trying to implement just the same as the Shredder. The Bulldog being the explosive 60mm rounds, and I always love it when people just start firing at me as if, you know, it really matters. Awesome sauce, guys. So where was I? Liberator, Bulldog. So the Bulldog is another one of those controversial guns because it fires grenades, grenade shells. Which means as soon as you take the Bulldog, you don't have the AA capacity that the Walker has. So what happens is, if you're running a Zephyr and a Bulldog, that means you have two semi-slow firing projectiles, so your anti-air capabilities are somewhat down the drain. So taking a Bulldog works if you've actually got a Mosquito or a Reaver or a Scythe detail that's chasing you, or if you're running a Shredder. Because if you side tip and strafe your Liberator, then your Shredder can actually also perform the AA function. The reason I like the Bulldog is because it just adds farm to your the farm capability to your Liberator. In that sense, it does mean that there's no point in only having one gunner with you that fulfills both the secondary and the tertiary role. You actually need a tertiary gunner when you use a Bulldog, because otherwise the entire point of being able to farm extra with the Liberator is kind of, you know, made pointless, because you only have one gunner that needs to make a choice between being in the secondary or the tertiary gun. So I'd say if you're running a Dalton or a Zephyr, then take a Walker and only take one gunner with you. If you're running a Shredder, then take a Bulldog and take two gunners with you, because as a pilot that's fairly interesting for you. It just means you get more assists. Plus normally tail gunners find it fairly boring, and it is boring, because, you know, you don't shoot down Scythes, Reavers or Mosquitoes that much really. You well, it's more of like a deterrent. When they get hit, it gives you time, because they have to try and outmaneuver you if they want to get stuck in and try to kill you. But yeah, you know, the point is the Bulldog is really good for anti-infantry. You can also try and do it with a Zephyr. Add a Zephyr, add another gunner, put a Bulldog, then you've got yourself like a Liberator infantry killing machine. But as I said, you need AA detail, or you need to be close up to enemy friendlies, to friendlies that can assist you if needed. So, but well, that's it for this episode anyway. As I said, it was going to be a fairly you know, boring, not so much action kind of video, just discussing all the certifications. We'll have a video up after this with more practical examples of flying about, killing stuff, how to do it with a picture-in-picture, so you can actually see what you normally don't see, which I find interesting. Hope you do too. And then I'll see you next video.